So that's what? That's polyphasic. They're existing in two worlds, the physical world and the dream world. It's as real to them as your cup of coffee is to you. So what do we know from a scientific basis, right? We know that there are different brainwave states that we can measure in our head. Most of you right now are in the beta or waking frequency. Roughly 10% of you statistically would be at the alpha or restful state. You're kind of in this restful state if you are a frequent meditator. Maybe it's also genetic. Maybe you were born with a brain that's less prone to stress. Maybe you just had a wonderful conversation with a friend. Maybe someone just gave you a hug. You go into this restful, peaceful state. That's alpha. That's the level of restfulness, but also creativity. Now, you can slow down your brain further to theta. Theta is a dreamy state. When you're at theta, it's hard to keep your head straight. So when you're meditating and you start nodding off like that, you're dipping into theta. Theta is interesting. Theta is where ideas come from. Theta is the realm of psychic ability. But there is a state even beyond that, and that is delta. Delta is what you're in when you're asleep. Now, what do some of the greatest minds in the world say about these states? This is where it gets pretty interesting. Thomas Edison was known for his naps, right? So he created some 2,300 patents in the Western world. One of the greatest inventors of all time. And Thomas Edison had this idea where he would get his best ideas from naps. So he would sleep with a metal ball in his hand. And as he drifted off into sleep, his hand would drop, the ball would drop, it would hit an iron plate below him, jolting him out of sleep. And in his mind, there would be a new idea. And Edison, what he was doing was really, he called it efficient napping, I guess, but what he was doing was dipping from beta to theta, beta to theta. He was dipping in here to grab ideas and bring them out to the waking state. 2,300 patents. Now, was it just Edison? Well, the funny thing is, Edison had a famous assistant, Nikola Tesla, who was born not far from here. In fact, 10 minutes away from where we are is a Tesla park. Nikola Tesla was born a very short distance from here. This is what Nikola Tesla had to say about these states. He said, "The mind is sharper and keener in seclusion and uninterrupted solitude. No big laboratory is needed in which to think. Originality thrives in seclusion, free of outside influences beating upon us to cripple the creative mind. Be alone. That is the secret of invention. Be alone. That is when ideas are born. This is why many of the earthly miracles have had their genesis in humble surroundings." When Tesla says be alone, he's talking about going into yourself, listening to that still voice within. Now, Tesla also said this: instinct is something which transcends knowledge. We have undoubtedly certain finer fibers that enable us to perceive truth when logical deduction or any other willful effort of the brain is futile. Tesla did not have access to an electroencephalograph machine or EEG machine to measure brain waves, but this is what Tesla was doing. He was able to access these states. In fact, one of Tesla's most famous quotes is this: "My brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration." Your brain is only a receiver. So what if your brain is like a radio and it can tune in to other frequencies? This is what we're going to talk about. And you're going to learn a couple of tools. How? Are you guys interested in this? Yes. Awesome. So I spend a lot of time going and working with neuroscientists to hack my brain. Just like I go to a gym to work out, I also go to these like deep, highly expensive neurotraining facilities to train my brain so that I can willfully go into these different states. I go into theta regularly for ideas, and I go into delta. Delta is this level. I go into delta to bend reality. What is also being observed right now is that people who are able to get to the delta level tend to be very lucky. They tend to be billionaires. They tend to be very creative. They tend to be lucky. It's like the universe has their back and their thoughts become reality fast. This is also being studied. So I actually am one of 5 people in the world who do something called delta training. And delta training is basically where you train your brain to be able to create ripples in time and space and influence reality. So I do that. And I want to show you like a little bit of what that looks like. This is me at one of the neurotraining facilities. So these machines actually exist. Now, this type of training is not cheap. It's bloody expensive. Neuroscientists are working with you. And that's a 3D printed helmet that's influencing the brain. But what I'm going to try to teach you here are some ways you can access these states on your own. So the first thing to understand is meditation. What happens when we meditate? And what exactly is meditation? So I want to share with you a secret. Meditation is often like misunderstood in the Western world, because we think it's about clearing your mind, focusing on your breath, getting very peaceful. And that's true. That's getting into alpha. That's relaxation. But you can go way deeper. You can be able to go into deeper levels of meditation to source ideas, to source inspiration. So for example, when I wrote The Code of the Extraordinary Mind, it took me a long time to get chapter 1 ready. It took me almost 3 years to finish chapter 1. Chapter 9 of the book, which was called Live Your Quest, I wrote in 8 hours flat. The original chapter 9 was something I wasn't happy with. I had 5 days to submit my book to my editor. And I woke up one day before Christmas and I realized, gosh, I freaking hate chapter 9. And all of a sudden, I feel this idea form in my head. And I sat down for 8 hours and retyped and rewrote the entire chapter 9 from scratch. The book went to print. And 2 years later, a documentary filmmaker came to me and said, hey, I want to make a documentary about your ideas. And they picked chapter 9. Chapter 9 of that book became the Live Your Quest documentary, which got nominated for an Emmy Award. But it was all written and conceived in 8 hours. Now, what was going on there? I had inadvertently tapped into certain altered states to download the information. These states are accessible to all of us. What consciousness ability one person might have, we all have, because we're all made of the same stuff. The only difference is we might be unaware that it's within us, or we might have beliefs that block it. So there's been a ton of research in meditation recently, and what the research is showing is still to be determined, because look at this, right? You'll notice that publication count on scientific studies for meditation, this is from the book Altered Traits, is exponential. And a lot of these publications are happening only in the last 10 years. So when people say, you know, meditation is fluff or I don't get meditation, it's only because we are entering a really new era. When I say we're entering the trans-rational era of humanity, this is what I mean. Look at that exponential curve, and it's going to continue rising 2030 and beyond. At that point, I believe, we'll be looking beyond just meditation, but at lucid dreaming, astral projection, all of these other beautiful abilities. So we're going to go do an exploration now on altered states, and we're going to start with relaxation. Now, when you go into relaxation, what's happening is you are reducing your brainwave frequency from beta to alpha. Alpha is the frequency of relaxation. Studies show that when you get to alpha, many remarkable things happen. Your body seems to heal itself. Stress disappears. Anxiety reduces. And so there are incredible beneficial effects on the body. There are some now at this point, 14,000 studies that show that meditation can have hugely beneficial impact on health. But there's more. When you get to these alpha states, you are also a source of creativity. You can thinkitate, to use Tom Bilyeu's word. You can ask the question and listen to your heart and see what emerges.